What's up guys, Everything Apple Pro here, and today Apple released iOS 11 Beta 5. Again, a ton of changes that I combed over and would love to share with you in this video. A lot of smaller refinements in this one, but some hidden gems in here as well. Let's get started. For the duration of this video, on the left, iOS 11 Beta 5 will reside. So, something as simple as the unlock animation. Now notice this, when you power your device on, it no longer blurs, it just fades from darkness to light. There's no longer a blur going on, it's just straight fade. The quick reply interface has been moved upwards, so that way it's not cramped down here. Still don't like it, I think it should be the whole space. On the lock screen with emergency SOS activated, you can see the cancel button is now white instead of black in the center. This is getting really annoying. I have this bug on iOS 11 Beta 5 where it's always going black on the lock screen. But taking a look at the music player, it'll actually tell you which device it belongs to now in case you forgot you're using an iPhone. For iPhone 6s and lower users, the cover sheet in landscape is now oriented properly. Previously it was all glitched and looking weird, now it's correct. Also in the lock screen music player, in case you forget which device you are using, it no longer says speaker, it calls your device an iPhone. Possibly a feature tying in with the iPhone 8 in the future with wireless charging. When your device is plugged in and charging and it reaches 100%, it will actually light up the display and play that sound for you. And a lot of tidbits in the control center. So starting with the top bar, when you're actually scrolling now, notice the blur. Instead, it was transparent before. And when you 3D touch on an icon in the control center that doesn't have a platter, it will just activate now. So just like that. Also notice that when you do enable things like these, it will actually display up top what you are enabling. Because they don't have labels, it can be confusing to some people. The volume indicator in the volume bar, as you can see, has 3 bars now, and they are not blurry any longer. It's a little bit thinner, more discreet. Also 3D touching on this interface here, you'll notice that the icon in the volume indicator is larger, and this overall shape is more rounded. Yes, I actually put it into Photoshop to compare, and they did round the corners. And same goes for the brightness. The logo here is larger, also a little bit more rounded. Also, when you don't have any music playing in the music widget, it just says music, no longer your iPhone up top. Now 3D touching inside of here, there are some visual differences as well. So the iPhone logo is surrounded by a circle now. It's a lot more circular stuff in here. Also the AirDrop logo, as you can see, has a circle background as well. Now clicking on this, you'll notice that it's no longer a done button, it goes to play pause. And again, in here, your device is renamed. So a very interesting change in the control center. Look at that. When it knows there are available devices, it will actually start blinking just like that in the top right. So you get a nice little animation over there, and it will continue to blink when you're connected to those devices and streaming music over them. I also noticed that during a FaceTime call, it would dynamically change to blue. So this thing can actually change colors depending on what you're doing and what you're streaming. I also noticed that the titles in the 3D Touch platters are all bolder now on Beta 5, and that goes for every single 3D Touch platter that you can activate in the control center. 3D touching on the screen recording platter will actually reveal that they moved the microphone audio button upwards. The screen mirroring button here, as you'll notice, has a slightly tweaked interface, bolder up there, and there is no longer a stop mirroring button. Interesting change is when you're actually recording your screen, there is now a red bar instead of a blue bar in Beta 5. Apple has once again made some tweaks, this time to the camera icon. There is no longer any depth to it in Beta 5. Also, the settings icon is a little bit darker now in the shade between all of the gears, and the contact icon has swapped orientations. And a very subtle one, it's hard to even notice. The only reason I noticed it was with Photoshop, but the health icon itself, they brightened up just a tad bit. And I didn't catch this in the last beta, but I wanted to share with you the fact that you can play videos directly from within the News Widget app without having to leave it. That's really cool. When entering a SIM pin for a locked SIM card, they fixed the interface so you can actually see the white dots, how many you've entered. Previously it was black. Very subtle one, but in the number dialer, the back button is a little bigger, a little bit bolder. Now, previously when your device was searching for a signal, it had the searching logo and then 3 little dots after it. Now those dots are gone, as Apple seems to be compacting that status bar for a certain iPhone 8. In the weather application, Apple seems to have shrunk these logos here. Instead of only being able to see 5 hours of weather, now you can see more. When opening up health, there's a new disclaimer for opting in to share your health and activity data. In the camera on the iPhone 7 Plus, it appears portrait mode is officially out of beta. And with that, you get a new splash screen detailing what it does and to continue to it. There's a new FaceTime sound. Just like that. A little bit different from the one we're used to for sure, but I think I like it. The speaker logo is a little bit more refined during a phone call. As you can see, it's thinner bars on beta 4. Beta 5, it's a little bit bolder. In settings, a lot of the icons here reflect the recent icon change, such as notes, reminders, Safari, news, even FaceTime. Apple has once again renamed the Siri tab back to Siri and Search. This is the third time they have changed their mind on that. Inside, you'll see a different description. Instead of Talk to Siri, it's now Ask Siri. In the settings search bar, it's a little bit more compact. There's no gap from the top search bar to the first search result, and exiting it no longer gives you that weird glitch. They fixed that in beta 5. And if you had any Apple ID alerts before on beta 4, they are now called Apple ID suggestions. And I noticed something. So Apple killed that height, the new change in height in settings. So previously where you got this big gap on beta 4, presumably for the function area, I think on the iPhone 8, they actually removed it and it's now back to normal. In the display and brightness settings, jumping into the display zoom tab, you'll see that the new change here is that they reflect an actual iOS 11 screenshot in the view instead of the old iOS 10 one. When adding a new fingerprint, you'll notice that the text is much bolder now. The text throughout the interface is much bolder now. In the emergency SOS tab, there's a new animated graphic helping illustrate what this feature does. Privacy settings, the calendar icon is now correct instead of just being a square splotch. And in location services, in the system services tab, scroll to the bottom and there's a new disclaimer for the Apple Watch. In the Notes tab here, scroll to the bottom and you'll see that there is no longer a Require Passcode tab. In its place, there's an updated description that you can configure Notes access from Control Center in Settings. In Safari, there's a new tab altogether up top to allow access to Siri and Search for Safari settings. And in the experimental features of Safari, they've been reorganized, some of them here, and one of them, I believe the Secure Contexts API has been renamed to iOS Secure Context Attribute. In the restrictions, you'll notice the iTunes Store icon has been updated to reflect the iOS 11 change. And iTunes Wi-Fi sync has a different splash screen now, letting you know you should plug it into iTunes. I'm not sure why this is, but for some reason using the Smart Invert feature on beta 5, don't know if this is deliberate, some of the stock icons or third-party applications are now reversed. And if I open them up, you can almost see that they're correct for a second and then they go back to being reversed. And message syncing has been removed from iCloud. The toggle has been completely eradicated. And in the iCloud settings, the contacts icon has been updated to reflect the change, but not reminders. And I'm not getting the option anymore, but in the iCloud settings, I actually had a Snapchat toggle here. Not sure if that's an experimental feature on Snapchat's part, but that may support iCloud soon. In the iTunes and App Store settings, autoplay videos has been renamed to video autoplay inside the same settings. And right beneath your Apple ID, you'll see a new password settings section where previously it didn't exist, and a slightly tweaked description for the offload unused apps feature. And Apple is further supporting more languages within the stock settings application. Jumping into the Siri settings, you'll see that it is now translated in Danish, where before it was in English, and this is reflected for more languages as well. The screen for entering your passcode on the App Store has changed. The interface is now more in line with the new interface when downloading apps. For apps that support it, the minimal volume indicator is now supported in iOS, so you don't get the stock one popping up at the same time. In Apple Music, the generic artist logo has been updated, slightly more in line with the design language. The video player in the Apple Music application has been updated. It now looks much sleeker, honestly something I would love to see in Safari too. It notes the splash screen once again has been slightly tweaked, so it's looking a little bit cleaner than an earlier version. And there's another one as well, so slightly different look there. In Notes, the sketching interface has shrunk and looks cleaner here as well. In the Notes share settings, there is a renamed one from markup as PDF to create PDF, and also an entirely new one that is known as save to files. So you can save notes directly to files now. In the Health app for activity, looking at a year in the past, it's gone from a line graph to a bar graph. Setting up a new card in beta 5, the interface is a little bit tweaked. The continue button was raised, as well as the text description. In the share settings in Photos, you'll notice some adjustments here with the share settings. So the create watch face logo, as you can see, is larger and bolder, and same goes for the save to files logo. It's been made larger, and the markup as PDF toggle has been removed entirely. And actually clicking on the save to files option, you'll see local folders from an application that created them. You cannot create your own folders, but if an app already made one, then you can see them and save it to them here. And a very interesting error within the Messages application. I've never got something like this before. It told me I was signed out in an error within the app itself. And in the Messages application, the quick camera interface is back to normal. Also in iMessage, the App Store splash screen has received a logo up top, and the interface itself shifted and shrunk. And it's a little hard to see this one, but in the digital heart interface in iMessage, the box is now rounded at the bottom instead of going straight down into this little toggle down here. In podcasts, the Browse tab has a new interface. It's bolder and I guess a little bit easier to navigate, but with a lot of wasted space in the middle. And from the release notes themselves, there's actually a lot of new voices for Siri, for Brazilian, Portuguese, Canadian, French, Dutch, and Swedish, and the female voices for English and Mexican Spanish, and an upgraded voice for both genders, Japanese and Chinese. It's hard for me to share this one, but when your AirPods have reached low battery status, there is a new alert sound in iOS. It's more mellow, not so sharp. That's the best description I can give. And shared by a Reddit user, trusting a computer now requires authentication with Touch ID. And there is a slightly tweaked animation when opening up the control center on the iPad. You'll notice it's a little bit bouncier, and from the right here, it doesn't actually fade in so much, it just boom appears. On the older version, it doesn't really have the same quite fade in effect. Notice it fades in from the right very slowly. And after updating, the new introduction splash screens to iOS 11 have been slightly tweaked, so they look a little bit different now. And here is the Geekbench result. So pretty good score, gotta say. Both single and multi are higher, cresting on that 6,000 mark. I remember when iOS 10 just came out, the iPhone 7 just came out, it wasn't not this high. It was around 5,600 most of the time. So Apple is really reaching peak optimization here. So all right, guys, there it is, iOS 11 Beta 5. Not too many groundbreaking features, just a lot of small refinements, but getting closer and closer to the final build. Peace.